But I still maintain that if you are obsessed, and I'm going to use the word obsessed more than passion. Passion is great, but it's not enough to drive you.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Lifestyle by Design podcast, and today I've got a very special guest, friend and family member, Dom Bagnato. Thanks for doing this, Dom.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
Awesome.
Real pleasure.
Many of you watching would know Dom. If you've bought one of his suits, he runs a premium menswear business in Melbourne and across Australia. So Dom, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you started the business.
Thank you for having us. It's a real pleasure. I'm one of those lucky guys who gets to tell their story because I have a really strong belief that everyone has a story.
Yep.
All of us have a story.
Yep.
But I get to tell it. So in my case, the business started in 1984. We started from a garage, which sounds really cliche, but it actually did.
There's many famous businesses that have started from a
exactly,
garage.
but it really did. I was freelance designing until then, so I was been working from home.
Yep.
I was freelancing designing for many companies.
Yep.
And we launched the business in 1984 from there, and then 1985 we moved to a studio in South Melbourne, and then in 86 we moved to a factory in Fitzroy, and then in 1987, so shortly after that we joined up with partnership with a company called Travellers Apparel who own the Opal Group. Now a lot of the mature people who will be watching this will remember that because Opal used to be was one of the most exciting premium menswear store chains around at the time. And that partnership caused us to relaunch the brand and start other brands like Spini and DB Sport. So that's the early stages. So that's how we started. We literally started from home, and it just grew into substantial business.
Yeah, awesome. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to get you on the show today was to talk about personal brand. The name of your company is Dom Bagnato, so you are someone who's been building a personal brand long before personal branding became a buzzword as it is today with social media and the whole different world of the internet that we have. But before we touch on that, I just wanted to hear a little bit about the journey that when you decided to go out on your own. What was it? Did you work for someone previously, or were you straight out of school and into the business, or what inspired the decision to go out there and build your own business?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, it's a really long story, but I'll quickly edit it for you. So I'm a kid from Tatura, country town in the Golden Valley. I come from a farming background. I'm 9 years old. I walk into my godfather's tailoring shop and I see and smell something that stayed with me in that moment. I fell in love with that room. I fell in love with that vision. In Form 2, I did a project on tailoring, which I had done years with my godfather, but that tailoring project opened my eyes and mind to the world of design, Christian Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, because the school I was going to, which was a male tech school, became co-educational school. I decided to swap my sheet metal classes for sewing classes, which I swear was not a good idea looking back. It was actually quite disastrous. At a boys' school in Shepparton doing sewing classes didn't work.
Yeah, tell me about that. You would have been, I think you would have been pretty well ahead of your time.
I was.
In that day and age, there wouldn't have been many people with the guts to go.
No, definitely not. All the stupidity. I was a kid who was a little bit rebellious. I didn't wear a uniform, although we had one. I wore vests because I was making them. I was a little bit of a, what do you call it, an extravagant type of person who wanted to not conform. Which has basically kind of been one of my little, looking back, one of my hidden secrets is not conforming. But I'll come back to that.
So the passion, your passion was built out of your desire to rebel.
I think so. I think so. It was, and also it was also driven by the fact because I fell in love with this thing, which I didn't even know what it was at the time. And this world of design that opened up for me, I really then fell in love with this concept, although the idea of me becoming a designer, whilst I didn't know what that was really, right? So I then, I think 14, I 14 and a half, before I finished school, I actually left school early. I'm not embarrassed to share that, because I did.
It was quite common back in the
I was so certain what I was, I do regret it by the way, but I was so certain that what I was doing, my dream path, it was so real that I no longer related to school. I couldn't see how anything that I was doing, at school, related to where I was going to be in my life. So I left early. I left early, continued my job with my godfather.
Did the family support you back then, or is it something that was a little bit lost on them?
Look, unfortunately, good question by the way. Unfortunately, my family were such hard-working, survival type people that they didn't see school as like the be-all end-all. You want to leave school? You want to leave? Like, great. Actually, if you come to the farm even earlier, even better. The earlier you leave school, for them would have been great, but I didn't end up at the farm, although they were on the weekends. So that life continued until I was about 16. And unfortunately, as I said, the story's too long, but unfortunately my little sister got killed in a car accident, and that changed our lives obviously. And after a few weeks, an uncle came to Melbourne to visit us. He was a very entrepreneurial type of guy. And during lunch that particular Sunday, we just talked about what I'd like to do one day. I said, I want to go to Melbourne one day, I want to be a designer. It was a conversation. He says, why don't you come today? Sorry? How'd you come today? Yeah, come today. Yeah, come today. My parents were sitting on my left, they were just like melting. Anyway, cut long story short, the whole afternoon became a conversation about me going to Melbourne. I was in that car on the way to Melbourne that afternoon.
That's amazing.
So that moment, that's why I'm big on moments, life-changing moments. That guy changed my life. He got me in a car, got me to Melbourne. He bought my, his name was Uncle Bruno, I forgot to mention his name. He bought my first machine, sewing machine. I lived with him, he had a service station. I worked at the service station and went to work. I didn't have a job. I just came to Melbourne and just went down and looked for jobs, and I went knocking on doors until I got a job, and I lived with him.
Wow.
So then my parents came to Melbourne later on. I then went to the government clothing factory.
It just shows the importance of having just one person showing a little bit of belief.
So in life you need a few things. You need to meet the right people at the right time. I know it's a cliche thing, but it's so true.
Right time.
You need the right time. You need to have people that give you the right guidance. You need to be open to it, of course. And I find that whilst I didn't know all of these things along the way, if I look back and try and identify why and when, I can honestly say that when you're driven and when you're obsessively, driven and with passion towards a dream, you tend to stay on a course that you end up meeting the right people at the right time.
You manifest certain things when you're going after.
Not so much manifest, but you actually cause you to stay on course.
Yeah, right.
Because what happens in life, people they get discouraged, they give up, and it could be just like one more week away from the right person, or one hour away from going to a function where someone says something that changes your life. And I had that a lot. So I came to Melbourne, got my job, went to the government clothing factory, worked there as well. When I was in my early 20s, again for a family friend who was leaving his job as a head designer from a big company, which was the Stafford Group. Left, and he rings me, Dom, what are you doing? I said, why? I'm leaving, I want to apply for my job. I said, but I've never worked as a designer, I'm a pattern maker at the government clothing factory. He said, perfect. I went for this job and I met this lovely man, his name was Ron King, who just recently passed, and I remember when I did his eulogy, I realised as I was doing it how much I had learnt for that period, because you don't realise, you just forget. And so I got a job at the Stafford Group as head designer, and I had never done it before.
Wow.
That's it. So this guy saw something in me, but that was the most beautiful period of my life. He and I clicked, and we designed these magnificent collections for years. And I was doing Christian Dior, Stafford Sport, Stafford Arnoldson, McGregor, like all these big brands at the time. Yeah.
Who has been your greatest influence, or which brand has been your most admired brand throughout the journey, other than your own, obviously?
Yeah, good question. Again, I've never been, I've never gravitated to a brand as such, or I get excited when I see real design.
Mm-hmm.
I get really excited when I see creativity, and it could be even local people. At the time, I must admit, because I was doing the Christian Dior collection, that really got me excited, because Christian Dior was very avant-garde, and I gravitated to avant-garde very much. So I was really excited at the time, because how that worked is the company that I was working for were licensees, but they allowed us to, well, kind of not really, they didn't allow us, but we kind of did our own collection, but for Christian Dior, and that was like, do whatever you like. It was fantastic. So to answer your question, I think that was one. But my influences were more people than brands. For example, Ron was a big influence. The owner of the Stafford Group, Murray Lebanski, was another one. People were my big influences, because they did little things like, for example, I remember once when I left the Stafford Group, Murray Lebanski gave me a little book. Yeah. I can't remember the name of it, which I wish I did. And I will remember when I got to find it, because I ended up having to find it years ago. And that changed my life, in the sense that he gave me that book, which caused me to then open the world up to Carnegie, 7 Habits, Think and Grow Rich. It put me on that path of learnings.
It's a classic Think and Grow Rich.
Right? Yeah. So that little book gift just put me on that path, and so on. So, staying on course and then meeting the right people at the right time is paramount.
And if you could, I mean, this is something I always contemplate. If I could go back and give my 18-year-old self 3 books, which books would they be? Do you, knowing what you know now, and I know it's not always a practical exercise, but as a theoretical exercise, if you could go back and give yourself 3 books, your 18-year-old self 3 books, what books would they be?
Definitely Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie, Think and Grow Rich.
Without a doubt.
It's an awesome book, guys. If you haven't read Dale Carnegie's Think and Grow Rich, you must get that book. It's like an encyclopedia of success, authored by one of the richest men in America back in the day. So definitely get that book. Yeah,
and the beauty about that is it wasn't a modern, it was an old, sort of year gone by mentality.
It was actually authored by Napoleon Hill, wasn't it? Who studied Dale Carnegie and 100 other. There you go. Sorry, there's my memory.
And then he did 7 Habits.
Yep.
So that grew from there, and I just became obsessed with reading this stuff, and I've still got them.
Interesting.
I've still got all these books.
So that's something I didn't know that about you, and even recently I learned that you attended a Tom Hopkins sales seminar. That's a side of you that I didn't really know. I always seen you as a creative person, but you've got the drive and you've got the sales.
Well, what happened to me was when I got that little book, I resonated with some of those things. So when I look back, that's the kicker. Like, if I didn't resonate with it, I would have not seen any of that. But I resonated to a lot of those things, and I thought, I've got that. I've got that. I realised I've got some ingredient to do whatever. So I then just went full bore to that. And then, now, unlike today, where thank God you've got Google to go into and all sorts of information and podcasts and so on, which is wonderful. In those days, there was nothing like that. It was either a book or a tape.
Yeah.
So I then went crazy looking for, when I started the Dom Bagnato brand, I think I'd sell my own brand. I'd never sold anything.
Yeah.
I'd not sold a thing.
And so I'm going to stop you just there, because I hear so often people say to me, I'm just living my passion. I just want to live my passion, and their passion may be music, and they're spending all their time writing music, and I say, okay, what are you doing on the business side of things? What are you doing on the sales side of things? And they're like, I'm not interested in sales. I'm not interested in the business side. I'm just interested in music. And I think sometimes what they fail to realize is that it's all part of it. There's, you've heard the saying many times, there's many musicians who have never been heard. There's many artists who've never been seen, and it's potentially because they lack that business side.
True.
They lack that sales side.
True.
So
I was no different though, Mark, because when I started, I'm a designer working in a studio with a team of 5 people. So I lived in this little world of creativity. Full stop. Yeah. On my way home, all I did was was listen to music and tape, because there was tape in those days,
Yeah.
all my styling ideas and what I was going to do the next day. All I did was design.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had no concept of business, no concept of selling, zero. When I started my own business, I didn't have a diary, by the way. When I started my business, I'm sitting in my back room studio in the garage. I went to I thought, I don't know how to sell. I don't know anything about business. I don't have a diary, so when I bought myself a diary, you must say, and I just left this great job into this unknown world. I went and did a night course on accounting. I went and started doing courses on marketing. I started to look at what can I learn. I need to learn selling. Oh, selling, yeah, okay. Who's selling? Tom Hopkins. Who's Tom Hopkins? I don't know. So I read the book. All of a sudden, I bought his tapes, and I became obsessed with this guy to the point that when he came out to Australia, as luck would have it, we dressed him for the Melbourne event. And I met some wonderful people through it, and that was brilliant, because if you then add all the bits of that and the bits that I previously learned about how to, some of the Dale Carnegie things, I just was able to demonstrate the gifts that God gave us and put them into some sort of language and concept and rationale that would make sense. And of course, I learned the most magical thing from Tom Hopkins. It's not what you sell and how you sell it, it's the words. The words.
Absolutely. Yes, I was getting my hair cut yesterday, and I was speaking to my hairdresser, and he's like, we're talking about the future and goals, and one day maybe him starting a business, and he's like, I don't know how to sell. And this hairdresser, amazing guy, and every time I go and get my hair cut, he's engaged, he converses, he asks me questions, he's enthusiastic about the things that he's talking about. And he said to me yesterday, he goes, I wouldn't know how to start my own business because I don't know how to sell. And I said, mate, if I were to give you a score out of 10 on your sales ability, I said, you're probably at about an 8. He said, what? I said, every time I've come in to get my hair cut in the last 3 months, you've sold. He goes, what do you mean? I said, your transfer of enthusiasm is what you need. He goes, that's what you do. I said, every time I come in, I look forward to coming in and speaking to you and having a conversation because you transfer your enthusiasm to me. I said, all you need is a product that you're just as passionate about as you are in your clients. I said, and you will be able to sell.
But there's the magic formula. You can't really teach that.
No.
You can teach the principles,
no.
But you've just explained someone who's authentically in love with what he does.
Yes.
When you're authentically in love with what you do, there is no selling. All you do is sharing.
There you go.
You're sharing your experience, you're sharing your product, you're being genuine, you're being honest. Unfortunately, today, the necessity to sell and the pressure on salespeople cause them to go into these sort of scripts, cause them to be a particular way, cause them to present themselves in a particular way that sometimes doesn't look authentic. And as a consumer,
you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, and as a consumer, we see too much of that, and you kind of get discouraged. There is and
that's what gives salespeople a bad name. It's that lack of authenticity, right?
Yeah. To me, honestly, it's very basic. When you love something, all you do is show your love with honesty. That's it's simple as that. You don't have to sell. Like when we were in the shop, for example, on the floor, whilst I'd sold my own collection for years, I didn't work on the shop floor. So the shop floor was another new world for me, right? And we were so honest that we would say to the client, no, that colour doesn't work for you. That doesn't look good on you. And we'd lose a sale. But we didn't do it as a selling pitch or script or formula. We were just being honest about what we're doing. Yeah. Same with Pierre, my wife, who worked on the floor. She was hairdresser. She came in to help me for 12 months and she stayed 8 years. She was the best salesperson on the floor because she just passionate. She just showed things and she had a chat and she showed how much she loved it and everyone bought into that. So it's actually really simple. It's very, very simple. In fact, we shouldn't even use the word, selling something. It's, you share something, you share, present. My definition of sales is a transfer of enthusiasm from me to you. And I think that's all it is. We complicate something that is very simple. Now, it's not to say that learning from the greats, techniques like the Tom Hopkins and all those types
understanding
of people.
human psychology.
Yeah, there's little things that they share that are very important. Words is important. Tone's important. Timing is important. Body language is important. But they are becoming even more important when it comes from a place that's real.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of writing an ebook. It's taking longer than I would like, but the very first chapter is find a product you're passionate about, and do not move on to chapter 2 or step 2 until you've mastered the first one, because that is the start, and it could be the end if you don't find that thing. And it's obvious that with the Dom brand and the Dom business, you found that thing that you're passionate about.
And that's why I said to you,
and it led to more and more.
Yeah, it did, and that's why I said to you at the start. I was lucky, I was lucky because I found something that I loved. Could I do it if I didn't? I think now that I look back on life, if I had to do it as a profession, in something that I didn't love, I'd need to still believe in it at least.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And what about the personal branding? You've named your business Dom Bagnato, and maybe that's something that just evolved and you didn't have too much thought into it. But for the people out there listening who are looking to build a personal brand in today's social media age, what are some tips and strategies that you could? I mean, we've touched on the first one, authenticity, as a no-brainer. Yeah. But what else could you advise?
Well, in my case, I was naming a fashion brand, and so I was going by very simply. Actually, it wasn't like I was going to call myself. I think I was going to call myself Dominic Bagnato, so I can't remember. That was my name, and it was Maury that said to me, "Why would you do that?" I said, "Why don't you call yourself Dom Bagnato?" I said, "Yeah, sure." I didn't put anything, but it made sense because it was about. A designer's name in those days was Christian Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, etc., etc. So that came from that. Personal brand to me is a bit different, meaning that if we're talking about a personal brand from the point of view of not having a product, is that what you mean?
Or basically just building their brand, building their personal brand in the form of content on social media. Okay. So they may work for an organisation, they may work for a builder, they may work for a car dealer, they may work for an IT company. But how do people go about building their personal brands through the creation of content? Okay,
it's probably not my area of expertise. However, I'm going to do it from the angle of that I don't think you can separate the principles of being a personal brand versus a business brand.
There you go.
I don't think you can separate them because the elements that you need for both are identical. The only difference is that obviously being a personal brand, there's you as a person, how you conduct yourself in day-to-day life. But at the end of the day, it's still like a brand. It's a personality, brand, person. Authenticity, brand, person. Honesty, exactly the same. So all the principles of being a brand is identical to a personal brand. So today it's even more difficult because social media has allowed every single human on the planet to be a brand. Okay. The challenge that I see, to be honest, and without sounding sort of stuck in the old world,
I'd like to hear this,
is that it's so noisy now. It's become such a noisy space.
Yeah.
It's become such a.
I think many would agree with that.
It's become such a. I'm trying to choose my words. It's become such a noisy, false space. So the secret.
There's no checks and balances to what we're
There's nothing at all. And because it's instant, the power is instant. I haven't spent any time on trying to dissect what makes me a personal brand or not. But however, what I do, not even consciously look for, I do look for real, like realness. And I know the word we use it, authenticity, but it's got to be real, it's got to be honest. Pause to answer questions so I can share with the team or whatever. That's what I'd identify under the word marketing language. Otherwise, I just did stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't have a formula. And when I look back, I wish that we You know the saying, ignorance is bliss. There is something in that.
I 100% agree with that.
You know, not knowing something, not knowing the pitfalls, not knowing the hurdles, there's some bliss in that because you just do it.
So, Dom's at the moment trying to, my Dom is trying to launch products online and you know, create an e-commerce business. And as part of that, we're in a mastermind with other people who are trying to sell online as well. And one of the things that I'm noticing is the amount of people that get stuck and begin procrastinating because they're scared to make a mistake. Because now you know so much. Now there's so many resources, there's so many books out there that tell you how to do something. And it's almost like we're trying to get and take on as much of this information as possible without just going out there and doing it with feel. Right? We're trying to perfect something that can't be perfected. The people that are successful in any business are the ones that just go out there and give things a go. You know, there's an amazing story, I think it's Mozart. You know, this 9-year-old comes up to Mozart and says, how do I become famous like you? And he said, you're too young. And or he's 12 or whatever he was, and Mozart says, you're too young. And he said, what about you? You were writing symphonies when you were 8 years old. And Mozart goes, yes, but I wasn't running around asking people how to do it. Right?
It's true. It's true. I agree with that. In the sense that that sometimes you can actually learn yourself out of a dream. You can learn yourself out of it. You learn too much. Having said that, I think it's still, given that we have the luxury of the information that we have these days, because it is a luxury. I mean, just going to Google and going to books and like, it's incredible what you can get these days. I don't think it hurts to become aware. So it becomes a calculated decision. But I still maintain that if you are obsessed, and I'm going to use the word obsessed more than passion. Passion is great, but it's not enough to drive you. Passion's great, but it's not enough to drive you.
Yeah.
Obsession drives you.
Yeah, I think I've heard Conor McGregor saying something like that.
Obsession, because obsession makes you blind.
Yeah.
So when you're obsessed with something, you'll read everything, you'll learn it, but you're still going to be going. But if you're not obsessed, the pitfalls that you'll learn about could hinder you. Because you're still passionate about it, you still love it, but
I think I've heard that somewhere before, but you almost have to be crazy to keep going in the face of some of the challenges that are going to come up.
It's actually beneficial because it's so hard to build a business and sustain it. It's so hard that unless you've driven for the right reasons, and anyone's got their own individual ones, you can't sustain the hurdles. And there's hurdles and brick walls sometimes. But when you're so committed to something, you know there's brick wall there, and you know you're gonna have to jump that brick wall and the hurdles and so on. That's the difference between the two decision makers. But I actually don't have a problem with, like even now, for example, right now, if I look at any opportunity, I do look at all the downsides. Whilst I do want to do it, and there's two reasons. One, unlike the 70s and 80s, to a lesser degree the 90s, you could make a mistake in those two eras, in those 2 decades, and still recover. Okay? Not only do you recover from an age point of view, because that's why I always think, if you're going to do something, you do it in your 30s. You've got to do it in your 30s, because if it doesn't work, you've got time to recover financially. Doing something like that in your 50s and 60s, it's tough.
Many people have said the same thing to me. Once you get to 40, then
40s are okay, but 50s plus is when the decision of doing something that's when it's crazy. Because if it fails, then there's no recovery time. You're done. Yeah. I'm not necessarily meaning that timeline. I'm necessarily meaning the 70s and 80s was such a new to this degree 60s. You could make a business mistake and still recover, start another business, still recover. Like you still. The 90s less so, but now the room for error is zero.
Why do you think that is? What do you think the biggest change and the biggest reason for that is?
We didn't have the competition that you have today. 70s and 80s, and let's do the 90s, there was no internet on sale.
Social media.
There's no social media. There was no shopping online. There's no the offer. Even if you took away, people talk about shopping online. Even if you took away those two things, shopping and social, there's more stores. There's more options.
It's brought opportunity, but on the same token has created competition.
But immense competition.
Yeah.
So your room for error has gone. For example, when I first started, so in the 80s, I was doing crazy avant-garde stuff. Really, in hindsight, uncommercial product. Uncommercial. But because I didn't know what you couldn't do, I just did it. And when they failed, and they'd be hanging, on the rack, and anyone would remind me, I just went on to the next thing. I didn't just go, oh, failed. I just, okay, yeah, great, boom, next thing. And if I failed again, but I was able to recover because I was kind of on my own. I didn't have a lot of competition. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But these days, we all have immense competition, so we've got to be on our game at all times.
And do you think that, back then, you could see what the guy next door was doing, or what the person across the road was doing, but you couldn't see what thousands and thousands and thousands of other brands were doing on your little handheld device.
And nor could they see what you're doing.
Right. So do you think that in today's day and age, that's part of the problem? The
Absolutely.
fact that if we're looking to launch a watch company, we can go online and within 3 seconds find 3,000 other companies launching watches, and then we talk ourselves out of it based on what we're seeing in that comparison.
Yes.
Whereas back then, if you wanted to launch a watch company, who could you see? You could see the guy across the road, and that was it.
But here's the irony. There could have been the same amount of competition, sort of per capita in those days, because you got to put it into volume of population. It's just you didn't know that. You didn't know. It didn't matter. Whereas now we know. And I know that's what
you can't unknow.
And I know that's what you're saying, but more so, it's actually greater. The competition is greater.
That's right.
So that magic question that people used to always ask me and say, Dom, why should people buy your suit? Which was back in the 80s and 90s. That's a worse question now for me, because my reasons for buying a suit back then were as challenging as they are today. Right? I could sit here and ramble off all the things why we do what we do and why you should buy it, right? But none of them are relevant anymore because everyone does a great job. There's great stuff everywhere.
And then to make matters worse, there's someone out there teaching how to have that unique selling proposition.
For example, so all those little hidden ingredients that you used to have now gone into the atmosphere, whether by your staff, because you have to share things with your staff, share it on. So you lose all those edges. Social media is a great catalyst for losing your edge. Gone, because everyone can just go and have a look. So you have to come up with new tools to be the reason why they should buy off you what they should be buying. Right? For example, now that's why sustainable products have got a big, very popular, because that's something you can actually sit by and go, the reason why you need to buy our product is because A, B, C, and D. It's sustainable, it's this, it's that, and there's a reason, right? But when you're sitting like us, where we're asking you to trust us as a premium brand, that we've been in the marketplace for X amount of years, and we only use the highest quality fabrics, and we don't skimp on quality, which are the real fundamental hallmarks of our brand. There's sometimes not enough for people to go, yeah, I think I'll buy your suit.
They're not valued as much as they used to be.
Correct. So what we now do is when people say to me, why should you buy a suit? I just say to them, just make some time, go into a store and just put one on.
And do you
just put one on. Put it on, and then you guys judge it, because I can't do more than you putting it on.
Well, do you think that in today's Instagram, social media day and age, that social proof has now become more of a motivator than quality or value?
Social proof in terms of your status of the brand?
Well, someone else is wearing that shirt, Kim Kardashian is the classic example, or Kanye West, or he wears that shirt, so I'm going to wear that shirt. And people are blindly following people rather than the core essence of a business these days.
Yeah, I think that's happening. It is definitely happening. That's why this is getting $1 million to post, something. I'm talking about Kim Kardashian. The reality is, though, that and I could be wrong, and I might get shot down in flames on this one. I see that as an most unsustainable part of social media. At some point, the consumer's going to go, of course you're going to say that, you're getting paid for it. So the authenticity is gone.
I agree.
That's the danger that we are now facing. I think I would much rather, if someone's wearing a Dom Bagnato garment, I would much rather know that he paid for it.
Yeah.
So whilst that is a vehicle that's being used by all of us, if I'm going to be true to myself in terms of the word authenticity, I think that brands that are promoted via celebrities, if you notice already now, if you look at all the stuff on social media, that's dropped off dramatically.
And are we going to come full circle? You know, our news feeds today are so clogged and clouded. You see what people are wearing, what people have had for breakfast, and I don't scroll my news feed anymore because I'm tired of seeing what's on.
Not only tired, you don't have time.
Well, yeah.
You're too busy.
Yeah. Well,
everyone's too busy. And the other thing too, of course, depends. What reason did you choose not to do it for?
Not to do.
Yeah, not to spend too much time scrolling on newsfeed.
Just so much stuff that wasn't relevant.
Exactly.
Just things that aren't relevant. I'm a big believer of closed groups. I think there's going to be. I don't think we're going to go back to the book club type meet every Sunday scenario. I think people are too, like you said, time poor.
Yep.
But I do think on social media there's going to be more and more closed groups.
Yeah.
So there might be a men's fashion group, or there might be a e-commerce sellers group, and people are going to engage more within private groups on social media. I think that's
I agree.
a growing trend.
I agree. I don't know if you noticed, at no stage have I said in my day or back in the day,
No.
I don't need that. Not once, because I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Because that was then, with all its relevant environment. But one thing's not going to change, and it will return. At the end of the day, we are humans.
Connection.
Humans need to connect and interact, and they need to trust. They're the elements of a human being.
Yeah.
That is never going to change. Yes, everyone gets confused with all the distractions, and we are distracted at the moment. We at this very moment, one of the reasons I believe that it's hard to sell anything, or market anything, is that it's too much available at one time.
People are becoming
overwhelmed, confused, to the point where you can't even navigate through that anymore. And even the ambassadors and dressing celebrities and trying to get that little edge, that no longer has the power that it used to have. I don't know what the secret is going forward. I really don't. All I know is that humans, if you look at every generation we've ever had, they need to feel important. They need to feel needed. They need love, TLC, trust. Like all the principles of human nature has not changed.
Yeah.
Now, humans wanted to, you look back at our history from day one, people used to wear it in a certain way to show their status. Look how well I've done in my life. Nothing's changed. Right? All those things don't change. All that's happened now is that it's become noisy and confusing. That's it.
And so, knowing what you know now, would you still get into business with all the competition that is out there?
If I was starting right now, knowing what I know, yes, I would, because if I, and I say if, and I'll tell you why I'm saying if I was my 27-year-old when I started, if I was that same person, I would do it all over again today.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that I was blindly obsessed with passion about doing this thing. I remember when I left, and the owner of the business was shocked, because I was on great money. Like, I was 27, had my house paid off. And he said, why are you leaving, Dom? And I said, I want to start my own business. And he wanted to hear, because he was a real money man, he wanted to hear, because I want to earn this amount of money and so on.
That I was just going to ask, what is it that you were obsessed about exactly? You know, were you obsessed about the lifestyle that you wanted to create through the business, or you were just obsessed on creating the product and you can care about the rest?
Well, I didn't know.
Do you believe that both motivators are enough?
Well,
or does it need to be one or the other?
Well, I didn't know about the lifestyle that I was going into. I had no idea. All I knew was I was about to risk my home and going into business, and I didn't know what I was doing. I actually left work and I went to because I was doing pat making in those days, and that was my income. But when I started my business, I actually didn't know how I was going do till I was going to start this business.
Yeah.
I just knew that I was going to start this business.
Yeah.
So my driver was purely one driver, which is not really sort of, I couldn't sell this to the bank. I just wanted to start my own brand.
So it's the journey.
That's all. There was, and when he asked me, he says, "Why do you want to start your own business? Why do you want to start going out in business?" I said, "Because I want to start my own business." So what's your goal? What's your dream? He says to me. I said, "I want to be the best designer in Australia." That's all came out of my mouth. And he looked at me and says, "Okay, so you will never make any money." And I looked at him and I said, "Guess what? I just asked." He said, you didn't say to me, I want to start my own business so I can make money." I said, "No, I said I want to start my business to be the best designer." He says, "Well, yeah, I'm sure you will." I said, "But you won't make any money."
Wow.
And that was a good conversation because that also can drive you as well. That can motivate you to go, "Yeah, okay, I'll show you."
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Which is another story again because he actually did do that. But he was a wonderful, wonderful person. I only brought that up for this reason. Yes, everyone's going to have a different reason to start a business. When you ask someone, "Why do you go into businence?" Some people use their income as a driver, which is absolutely relevant, and that has a different conversation. And to answer your question, should you have one or the other or both? I don't think there's a should. I don't think you should have one or the other as long as there's one.
Yeah.
If you've got two of them or three of them, great. But one will do the trick.
You almost have to wake up every morning and ask yourself, would I rather be doing anything else today? And if the answer is yes, I'd rather be doing this, this, and this, well, I think there is your answer.
But
right
you know
there.
what, Mark? You know what's funny? When you're in the zone, and I know a lot of people who may be watching, who will watch this, will resonate with. When you're in the zone of that journey, you never wake up any morning asking that question. It just doesn't happen. You just get up and go.
Yeah.
It never happens.
I think that's the litmus test. Yeah. That's a big one. That's a really, really.
If you're starting to have those conversations, you've already got the answer.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. Yeah.
And listen to those voices. Those voices should never be ignored. It's a big one. If those voices are being shut, if they start to come into your mind, I strongly believe in being tapped on the shoulder. Strongly believe in it.
And so many people try and hide from that, and they don't want to.
Because you
don't want to accept the truth of the situation.
No, because you don't want to. What's the word to use? I don't know if you've noticed it when you're going shopping, or anything. You can talk yourself into something. There's this little voice going on, and you just ignore it, and it gets more distant. You should be listening to it, whatever it is, or business decision. Because when we went to 70 Burke Street, which this is now 1993, and we were like done. We were flat broke. I don't know how we even continued. Which was the second time that it happened, where we lost a set amount of money. And I remember it was April of '93, and I was shattered. I remember I hadn't slept, went to work, went to the mirror, I just looked at the mirror, gazing like what am I going to do? And I went out to the front door of the shop. I looked down Burke Street, and I was beaten. I was emotionally beaten. And I remember looking down my right, and this is no joke. And the scene went to Burke Street turned into a dirt track, and all I could see was my dad and my grandfather walking along the dirt track with sticks in their hands. And then I just stood there, and I looked at myself and I thought, what are you worried about? You're standing in Burke Street, a beautiful suit. Look what these guys had to do. No, seriously, swear to God. Yeah. And I just walked back in.
Yeah.
And I felt better that day. A few days later, unfortunately that didn't last, but it did affect me. We had no one coming through the store, and even though our custom-made side of the business was okay, no one coming through the store. So I remember being at the counter doing some paperwork of some sort, and I all of a sudden the light on the door disappears because this guy was so big, and a voice screens out. He says, "Are you Dom Bagnato?" I looked up and said, "Yes." He says, "Back in a minute." Disappeared. Didn't know who it was. Comes back, walks through the door, and it was Lindsay Fox.
No way.
Yeah, with 4 lengths of fabric. Walks up, throws them on the counter, goes, I hear you make a good suit.
You're kidding me.
I said, well, thank you. He goes, okay, I want this for Ralph, this for John, this, and line them all up, this for me. And he says, okay, yeah, I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to have a coffee at Pellegrini's.
Pellegrini's,
yeah,
love that place.
And he went to Pellegrini's, had a coffee, then he came back and we started talking about all the garments. And I'm telling the story because you'll notice in my journey there's been a lot of luck points. Luck. I didn't know. But there was a reason why I'm bringing it up.
You make your own luck.
Well, you make your own luck in the sense you need to be around for the luck.
Yep.
Right? So I'm telling the story because I just spent weeks talking to people and saying, you know, what do you do? How do you survive? Like I was desperate. I was trying to get feedback from anyone. What do you do? Based on what you're saying. And I realised once you start asking, I'm going to go back to how you started with this conversation. Once you start asking why you shouldn't, you realise that passion is starting to, that drive is starting to be challenged.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I didn't know at the time though. I was almost beaten. Okay, so I started to ask the question, started to doubt myself, started to doubt what we were doing. And I didn't know it then, but when I look back, I was in that bad place, business-wise. But this magical thing happened. Lindsay Fox walked, so nothing happened. Lindsay Fox walks in, throws 4 lengths on the counter, and I was incredible. Like, because the worker, we were charging 15 to 2 grand a suit in those days, if not more sometimes, right?
Jeez,
big money. Then.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But they were handcrafted, like the real thing.
Wow.
Then, so this is now nearly Easter. So this is I won't give you the time, but it's April, always in April. Get a phone call from, and it's going to sound like I'm dropping names, but it's important that I mention these guys' names because they actually changed our business. So I get a phone call from Lloyd Williams, who were making these suits at the time.
Incredible. And
he rings up and he never rings. He never ever rings. And when he did from time to time, it would be because he didn't like something, a button, whatever. He was a beautiful dresser. He was meticulous. Everything had to be spot on. He was a wonderful client because his standard was so high.
So that's another conversation, standards.
Oh, amazing. And he says to me, Dom, do you make ladies wear? I went, oh yes, we do ladies wear. I used to design ladies wear, but we hadn't made ladies wear for years. I didn't have a pattern.
You'd be like,
I said, yes, we make ladies wear. He says, okay, well I want A, B, C, and D. I want my wife to come in and on this date, and yeah, if you could please do these outfits for her. Anyway, and he nominated the fabrics. They then came in, his team came in, selected fabrics. Anyway, I went upstairs to the workroom to Sam Dammer, who's a beautiful man who I bought the store for, and he's stayed on. Beautiful man, God, I miss him. I said, Sam. He says, what, Mr. Williams called? He goes, oh, good. I said, no, not good. Okay. He wants ladies wear, he wants outfits, suits for his wife. And I said, we've never made those. He goes, no, that's okay. I said, it's okay. I said, we don't have any patterns. I said, we'll make some patterns. Oh, yeah, sure, okay. So, and we made these outfits for his wife. So, the point about this story is those 2 moments changed our business journey. So, until 1993, we were done. And the spark came back, the confidence came back, the vision came back. And there's another big story that belongs to that time, which was a similar driver, which sounds a bit bizarre. So going back to what I just said, I was in the zone of pulling the plug on it, right? So I'm now stepping back a bit, I'm sorry, but prior to these 2, because they all going to make sense. So I'm sitting at the train station in Richmond, and I'm sitting on the bench. There's, again, I'm in that bad place. Didn't know how to get out of this problem that we had. We had all this debt. And just to my right, it was like, let's say 7 o'clock at night, something like that, a bit of rain. There's a magazine, those weekly type magazines. I don't know what magazine it was, but the next minute a bit of wind flew up, just like in the movies, and boom, that opened. I swear to God, it's a true story, guys. It's so bizarre. I've got to find this heading so people will believe that it was actually printed, it wasn't a dream. It opens up double page spread. And from a distance, because the heading was so big, it read, survive to 95. That's what it said, survived to 95. Right? When I picked it up, and it was an article about tips on how to survive business, because we were in a recession. Victoria was in one of the worst recessions we've
To
ever
make
had.
matters worse.
Yeah, we were in a recession. It was terrible. People talk about it now, this is picnic compared to that. So I started to read all the tips and do's and don'ts and, you know, cutting costs, all just basic stuff. But it was that heading that got me, right? So that happened. Anyway, I took the magazine. I wish to God I had kept it. But then, a few days later, or a week later, the Lindsay Fox thing happened. The Lloyd Williams thing. Although Lloyd was our client, he was making suits all year because he had two. Oh no, can't disclose too much. He had a big wardrobe, so no, I can't. But he was a wonderful customer. He loved his suits.
That's incredible.
And so that gave me the drive. My drive was back. And then this heading, I read that as a sign. Survive to 95. Yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to survive to 95. I didn't know how. But the Lindsay Fox garments, all this business started to come through. Whilst our store was suffering, our back of house production room was going nuts. And that got us through. Okay? So it got us through. We got into a positive space. I started to feel good. You know, I started to see, you know, light at the end of the tunnel. Everything was great. Then, by this stage, FIA came around, like we were recognised. It was just, all the parts were starting to fall into place. We then won Fashion Designer of the Year. Oh, it was all happening. And then one day, this couple of guys walked in, lovely guys, Peter Lockett and Kim Mackey. And Kim Mackey was from Cambridge Clothing in New Zealand. And they walk into the store, just popped in and said hi. And long story short, they put a proposal to us to do a licensing deal in New Zealand. And whilst that's got a long story in itself, I'm going to shorten it by saying I eventually agreed to investigating this proposal. But the story is, because I survived to 1995, which I did, that opportunity of someone coming into the store, licensing the brand for New Zealand, and then it became a big thing for here. It just took us on another journey.
Amazing. Amazing.
That's the point of the story.
And I'm sure Lloyd Williams and Lindsay Fox have helped many businesses, but I don't think they realise they've helped a business in exactly this way.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I made sure that they did.
Oh, you
So what I did, I got this, I got their fabric. Their fabric was so exclusive that it came with a certificate. So I got them framed. I put our name on the bottom, a thank you, and we actually they were beautiful frames for both Lloyd, for Lindsay, and two other people in that sort of same era, same caliber of business people. And we got those frames and we gave it to them. We sent it to them to say thank you, because that's how important they were in our business. And we actually did acknowledge them.
Wow.
Yeah.